Hi, fourth graders. Well, now we're up to lesson 4.11, which basically is asking us to divide larger numbers. And as you can see, we're now into the thousands, but I don't want to hear any moans and groans because you know that once you have the procedure for long division, it really doesn't matter how many digits you have in your dividend. But I think with the larger numbers, and it does get a little trickier sometimes, we should definitely figure out our range of where our answer should be in between, just to make sure our answers are reasonable. We'll catch a lot of errors that way. So if we have, if we have 8,523 as our actual target number, our dividend, what two multiples of 8 does that sit between? So again, we're going to look right here. We can look at the 8 or the 85 if you want, either way. And I know when I'm going down my multiples of 8 on my multiplication chart, the multiple of 8 that is just under 85 would be 80, which would be 8 times 10. But it's not 80, right? We need to make that a 4-digit number, so we need to add 2 zeros to that or multiply it by 100. Now we have our 4-digit number of 8,000. We're still going to look at 80. And to solve this, how many 8s are in 80? That's 10. We're going to divide that for our quotient. But again, we have a number that is 100 times greater than 80, so we have to make our answer 100 times greater by multiplying by 100 or putting those 2 zeros there. So that's our first quotient, 1,000. Now the multiple of 8 that is greater than 85 is 88. But again, 88, you have to make it a 4-digit number, so you have to make it 100 times greater. So we have 8,800. Two easy multiples of 8 that surround our actual dividend is 8,000 and 8,800. Now 88 divided by 8, because here's our quotient over here, our divisor of 8, is 11. But again, 11 is not close because we didn't just divide 88. We have to multiply everything by 100, which is where we're adding the 2 zeros. So now we know that our real answer, our target answer right here, what's going to be the answer to 8,528 divided by 8 is going to have to be between 1,000 and 1,100. And that's really going to test our reasonableness. So let's look at our problem over here. And I'm going to use the grid paper if I can use my pen to fit it in there. The first thing I'm going to look at as I read the question is there are 8,523 sheets of origami paper to be divided equally among 8 schools. How many sheets of origami paper will each school get? So in order to answer that, here is our division problem. We already have our range and we know that our real answer is going to be greater than 1,000 but less than 1,100. So let's see how we do this. Can we divide 8 thousands? And I'm going to write it up here. Here we have our thousands. Doesn't look like thousands. There we go. Thousands in that column. The hundreds, the tens, and the ones. All right? Here's our columns going down here. Thousands, hundreds, tens, and ones. Can we make a group of 8 out of 8 thousands? Yes, we can. It's equal to the divisor. As long as it's equal to or greater than the divisor, we're okay to divide it. So 8 divided by 8 is 1, or you could do it the way I do it, is 8 times what will equal 8, because I use multiplication to solve my division. So now we've divided. Now we have to multiply. 1 times 8 is 8, because we have to remember that we divide first, then we multiply. What's our next step? Subtraction, right? Why do we subtract? Because we're trying to figure out if there's any leftovers. And since 8 minus 8 is 0, we have no leftovers right now. And we're going to look up here and just check, is 0 less than 8? Yes, so we're set to go. I noticed a few people today ended up getting stuck because they ended up with a partial remainder here that was greater than the divisor and they couldn't go on, and it will stop you every time. You do need to make sure that your remainder that you have here is less than your divisor. So now we go to the hundreds column. We are in the hundreds columns. We're going to bring down the 5, which is really 500, but we can look at it as a 5. Now, we're going to think about this. How many groups of 8 can we get out of 5? If I had just 5 little dots here, could I make a group of 8 out of those 5 little dots? Do I have enough? Think about it. Can I make a group of 8 out of 5 things? No, I can't. So how many groups of 8 can I get from 5? 0. I can't get any groups of 8 out of just 5 things. All right, so that's where we write. We put the 0 here. This is the tricky part when your quotient ends up having to have zeros as part of the answer to a division problem. Now let's do our multiplication. 0 times 8 is, that's right, 0. All right, so now we're going to do our subtraction. 5 minus 0 is 5. Let's check. Is 5 less than 8? Yes, it is. We're all set to go. Now we're going to go and keep going with our does McDonald's sell cheeseburgers. We're going to bring down the 2. All right, so now we're at 52. It's 52 tens because of where it sits in our place value chart, but we can just look at it as 52. It's easier that way. How many 8s can we get out of 52? Well, as I go down my 8s times table, I know that the largest multiple of 8 that I get to without going over 52 is 48. And I know that I can get 6 sets of 8 from 48. All right, that's the quotient for 52 divided by 8. You can get 6 groups of 8, which is 48. If I go up one more and I do 7, that would need 56, and that's way too much. So now we write 48 there. Now we do have some leftovers this time. We've only used 48 tens out of the 52 tens we had. So how many do we have left? What is 52 minus 48? I like to count on to figure it out. I don't regroup when the two numbers are so close. I know from 48 to 50 is 2, and from 50 to 52 is another 2. So altogether there's a difference of 4. Let me check. Is 4 less than 8? Yes, it is. I'm ready to go and bring down my final number in the ones column down here, and it's a 3, which makes 4 tens. We add the 3 to it, and now we're at 43. How many sets of 8 can we get out of 43? Well, as I think about it, the highest that I can go without going over 43, the highest multiple I can get to is 40, because 40 is a multiple of 8, and then 48 is a multiple of 8. 48 is too much. So at 40, I know that 5 times 8 is 40, or if I look on my multiplication chart, when I got to 40, I looked over on the 8's multiple list, and I saw that that was a 5. 5 times 8 is 40. I'll put the 40 here. All right, that's how much we've used if we make 5 groups of 8. And now what are we left with? Well, we have to find out what's remaining by taking away what we've used so far from what we had, which was a remainder of 43. We've used another 40 of it, so that means 43 minus 40 is, right, 3. So our answer is 1,065 with a remainder of 3. And what does that really mean if we're going to be doing pieces of paper? Can we cut this? Can each school get 3/8 of a sheet of paper? Yeah, they can if you want to cut that. But I mean, realistically, we know each school can get 1,065 sheets of paper, and you're going to have 3 spare sheets left. So each school will get 1,065 sheets of paper. Now, how do we check that answer? It's very important to check. Well, first of all, we're going to look at our estimates. Is 1,065 in between our estimates of 1,000 and 1,100 over here? Yes, it is. So it passed its first test. But that still doesn't guarantee that it's correct. So how are we going to make sure that it's correct? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to take our division problem and we have to multiply it back out to check. If 8,523 divided by 8 is 1,065 with a remainder of 3, then 8 times 1,065 with a remainder of 3 should get us back to what we started with. Now the first thing we have to do is just multiply our divisor and the quotient. So let's do that over here. 1,065 times 8. All right, we're going to do our multiplication so far. But we can't just forget about our remainder. That comes in at the end. So 8 times 5 is 40. We place the 0 there and we regroup the 4, or the 4 tens. 8 times 6 is 48, plus 4 is, what is that? 52. All right, and I regroup the 5. 8 times 0 is 0, plus 5 is that, right? 8 times 0 is 0, plus 5 is 5. And then 8 times 1, or 8 times 1,000, is 8. All right, so far we have a product of 8,520, but that does not match our quotient that we started with. But don't forget, we have that remainder of 3, and we have to add that remainder back in to check it, to make sure we get back. So if we had a remainder of 3, now we're going to add it back in, and when we add that back in, we notice that now we're up to 8,523, and when we check that in after adding in our remainder, we realize that ding, 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 our answer is correct. So how do we check our answer to a division problem? We multiply. We multiply our answer times the divisor, and don't forget, if you have a remainder, you have to add that in too. And if you get back to where you started, you know you're right. Good luck with today's lessons.